It is. Is it anywhere?
You have to go on YouTube. My YouTube. You get on my YouTube.
Oh no! I've sent that out. That's all right. I've sent that out.
Right, I'm just waiting. Good evening, everyone. I'm just bringing up. My V can't come on yet. Ah, there it is. Right, I'm just waiting. Good evening, everyone. I'm just bringing up. My V can't come on yet. Ah, there it is. Right, I'm just waiting. Good evening, everyone. Right. Bringing up. My V can't come on yet. Ah, there it is. Right. That's better. That's better. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. A lot of comments in the chat already. P. Pie, Major, Jason, Bourne, Drone, 66, June Glover. June Glover's one of your lot. I'm sure I've seen her on your thing. Awaken the Truth. Dave Wesley, Poppy Lover. I've got Graham Moore on. I met Graham 3 years ago at the Tommy Robinson book signing. I've seen him plenty of times since. I watch his shows a lot. I am a big believer in the Constitution and our laws and how we should be. And Graham's a man for that, certainly is a man. I'm honoured to have him on, and I'm going to be helping. I'm going to be going up to Batley, 25th, 26th, 27, helping out where I can. I'll take some pictures. I'll do whatever I can, and helping the English Democrats in Batley, where it's all going on at the moment. But Graham wanted to come on tonight and just explain a few things about under British law and under English law. And Graham, I'll leave it to you.
Well, so again, I am really grateful for the opportunity to be on the show because I actually quite like you. so you always pop up in the most odd places, a bit like me. When the British go, it's him again, right? So there's a few things that I was going to talk to people about, and I wanted to do it on a separate show, not on my own show, so more people understand what I'm talking about. So the way in which you've described it tonight is the difference between British law and English law. Well, the simplest thing to say to people is, and I want everyone to listen to what I'm saying, there is no such thing as British law. There never has been, right? The British is the British establishment and the British Parliament that now resides in Westminster. By the way, can I smoke on your show?
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, I don't mind.
So the British establishment have the Westminster Parliament, right? It used to be an English Parliament. Our Parliament, as an English Parliament, used to be in York, used to be in a number of other places all around England. And it last resided in Westminster. Now, what people don't realise is in 1706 and 1707, the last acts of an English Parliament were the Acts of Union. And in those Acts of Union, it stated that our rights must be communicated to the people. The English rights and the Scottish rights to the people in Scotland must be communicated to the people. It didn't remove any of our constitutional rights or the laws or the Bill of Rights, which, by the way, cannot be repealed, even by referendum. All and singular are still valid rights, right? So that's the main thing that people need to understand. But getting back to the British problem, what happened was it was a political union, and it's no different to the USSR, and it's no different to Yugoslavia or anywhere else, right? We was the first, in reality, official, if you like, supranational state. And I'm sure people have heard that reference with the European Union because European Union is the same. It is a supranational state. Now, what happens then is you get a political union. So basically, the Scots went off on an escapade to South America. They bankrupted themselves, come back with their tails between the legs, or in some cases, something was put between the legs underneath their kilts, and they come back to Scotland and they're skint, right? They royally cocked it up, basically. They were skint and they needed to be bailed out. And what happened was they went for a political union. At the time in 1706, 1707, the English people didn't want it, and nor did the Scots people. They said, no, we want to be completely separate. But the elites decided that they was going to bring together the two parliaments. That is why it's a political, not anything else. So the union of the crown happened well before that in 1601, I think it was. So if you understand that the union of the crown already happened, then this was a political union of two parliaments coming together. And that meant that the Scots basically moved into our parliament, and some of their lords moved into our parliament, right? But you've only got to read the Acts of Union to understand that the two nations were completely separate. Scotland has a completely different legal system, getting back to the British and the English law. It has what's known as a Roman law system. Now, what happens in Roman law is everything you are allowed to do is written down in law. So a judge who is an administrator of Roman law looks down the list and says, yeah, you're allowed to do that, tick, that's lawful. But if you've done something that isn't written in law to say that it is okay for you to do it, therefore it is legal to do it, therefore if it's not written, it's unlawful. So what a lot of people have said in the past, and I'll give you an example. If you wanted to go and buy a cucumber from the European Union, there was something like 40,000 words in the regulations from the European Union that covered how a cucumber should look to be a cucumber, right? So it couldn't be bent, it had to be straight, it had to be this, it had to be that, and all these different things. And the reason there was more in one regulation, I think it was either a cabbage or a cucumber, then there were more words in that one regulation covering that one vegetable than there are in the Holy Bible, right? So that's Roman law. So the Scots have got what's known as a Roman law system. The European Union have got a Roman law system, and the ones who've always stood out in history as not having that, having a common law system, are the English. We have a separate and distinct, different legal system. Now, again, going back to why is common law different to Roman law in Scotland, and I won't mention a person's name, but there is some lemon up north. When I say up north, I mean in Scotland, that talks about common law. He's a Scot. In Scotland, it's Roman law, and he knows absolutely nothing about the common law system and why it's there. The Magna Carta is English. It isn't Scottish. It isn't British. It is English. The Scots have got a separate document that was sometime later called the Declaration of Albraith, I believe it is. And the reason I don't know that much about it is because I'm not Scottish, I'm English. So therefore, my emphasis is on the Magna Carta of 1215, the Magna Carta that was then brought into Parliament when a Parliament existed of 1297. But you must remember that the Magna Carta of 1215 cannot be repealed by Parliament. And the reason for that is because Parliament didn't exist at that time, not in the way that we know it now. And therefore, it's out of its jurisdiction. It was a treaty between the barons and their heirs, which we are, and anyone will tell you this, if they know anything about the English, we are now of the same blood of the barons. So we are the heirs of the barons. Whether people like it or not, that is a fact. So we rely on our ancient rights and heirs and the customs of the Magna Carta and pre-Magna Carta, I may add. So getting back to English law, the reason why English common law is so good is because, and people often misinterpret what common law is. Common law covers three areas. One is what's known as customary law. That means if you live in, let's say, Oldham, yeah, and I live in Kent, but it is the custom of Oldham that on a Friday you all stand out in the middle of the road and wave at each other, then that is a custom of Oldham. And therefore, if that becomes a good custom and people like it, it may spread to other counties, right? And if it spreads to other towns, villages, counties, etc., it can get bigger a bit. And eventually they may say, well, we regard this as common law because, you know, most of the people are doing this throughout the country. And it can be brought onto what's known as the statute book. So it could be made a statute of law and enacted in a parliament if it's regarded as good law. So there's three elements to it. There is customary law, there is statutes, and there is common law. And a common law interprets the words on a page. So I'll give you an example, and it is only an example. Let me just show. So if I held up in front of you that as a law, and it's one page, and it says, the reason why our laws are so short is because the interpretation was left to a judge. And that's where the common law come from. And then the judge will look, and you explain why you're doing X, and someone else would explain why they think that's bad that you're doing X. And the judge would listen and would look at the statute and then would say, under this law, X has done nothing wrong. I've listened. I believe him to be reasonable, or her to be reasonable. I believe that they're not harming anyone. They're not causing any loss to anyone. And they go through, there is no injury to anyone. And they're not committing any fraud. So therefore, in this short law, I don't believe they're doing anything wrong. And then they can set out their judgment. By setting out their judgment on that particular case with that particular individual, yeah, they can then set what's known as a precedent. And it's a common law precedent. And that becomes the law of the land, right? Now, the only way it can be changed, if they don't like that, is that parliamentarians can go into Parliament, look at the judgment and say, well, that isn't what we intended. So we're going to create a law to absolutely make sure that the judges know exactly what we're talking about, what we want. But when the people in Parliament do that, they must, at all times, have regard for our constitutional rights. And that is what they're not doing. Their oath states, and it is a very serious offence on par with treason, to perjure your oath. And that's not the same as perjury in a court of law where you give evidence. When an official of the government, whether it be a judge, an MP, a privy councillor, which are really important, or any of them people perjure their oath, in English law, that is on par with treason. And it always has been. And I could, take you to the evidence of that. But one of the things they're supposed to take into account is, very simply, your constitutional rights. And your constitutional rights are contained within a number of documents written in law and precedent, right? So that's where the common law comes into. Were you going to ask me a question then?
Going back to the Magna Carta, I haven't studied the document, but would that document need to be reformed to reflect that we're in the 21st century, or do you think no?
No, and the reason, and that's a really good question. People often say to me, "We haven't got a constitution, a written constitution." We have got a written constitution. I can show you all the laws, and then they say, "Yeah, but it's not codified." It is codified, and it's codified in a number of documents. The reason why, and they often compare it to the United States of America, is because America got its constitution from us.
Yeah.
Its Second Amendment is actually our Seventh Amendment in the Bill of Rights. In other words, we have the right as English men and women to bear arms. We still have that right. It is the policy of the British government to disarm us. It is still our right, and the English Democrats are the only people that put it in their manifesto that we, and on the police and commissioner roles, and bear in mind Robin Tilbrook got 43,000 votes without, and again, we are oppressed because we're not allowed our voice out there, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So getting back to what you said, there's a difference. The reason why the Americans, they left this country, basically, and they were attacked by the British, and then obviously you had the War of Independence. Now, the reason why they had the War of Independence is because the British said to them, hand over your guns and get out of our way and do as you're told. Yeah. And the Americans said, we want the same rights as an Englishman. That's exactly what they said. And the British said, you're not getting them, right? They lost that war and they lost their biggest colony, right? Yeah. Well, we as England are the last significant colony of the British Empire, which is why we're oppressed. Yeah, we have never been racist. And if you go back through history and understand, for example, Granville Sharp, he was the one he was English and he was a tailor, a normal geezer like me, yeah, who stood up in the English courts and said, you can't be doing this slavery. It's against English law. It was him that stopped it, right? Wilberforce come along later, but Granville Sharp was an Englishman that stood up and stopped it.
They were so oppressed, though. When he first spoke about it, he had things thrown at him, everyone beat him down, and all that lot. But he stuck at it again after that to make sure it came into Parliament and they seriously talked about it. So there is a big history. I told you my dad's name, Granville Wilberforce Lawrence.
Yeah.
Granville Sharp, William Wilberforce, and Lawrence was the first town in America that wasn't segregated. So my dad understood that. My dad understood that.
No, again, and that's I'm really pleased to hear that as well, because Granville Sharp has been ignored by history. I've got all of his original manuscripts here. So when people start talking to me, especially these people that, again, getting back to the British, they project that it is the English that are racist, that the English are the bad guys. But what they're doing is, and if anyone don't understand what projection is, I'm going to give you a very short example of it, right? When your husband or wife comes in from a night out, you've been sitting there on the sofa like the good, partner that you are, wife, husband, or whatever, and they start accusing you of having an affair when they've just been heels up in a hotel room with their boyfriend or whatever it is. That's projection. When they're doing something and they are projecting it onto you as if you're the one having the affair, you're the bad guy, you're the bad woman, right? And this is what you're doing. That's projection. So what the British do is project all of the time that it is the English. Now, I want people to think about that. Think about the Magna Carta as the first human rights charter of 1215 that we gave to the world. Look at the human rights everywhere in the world now that's being applied, and you will see the wording comes from the Magna Carta of 1215, right? It might, the wording can change slightly, but the actual principle comes from the Magna Carta of 1215, right? So getting back to this situation with the British, there's no such thing as British law. There's English law. The Welsh come under English jurisdiction. That's nothing to do with me. That's the way history made it. And one of the kings said, who was a Welsh king, said, Wales is going to come under English law, English common law jurisdiction, and that's the way it is. I've got no issues with Wales being completely independent. I've got no issues with Scotland being completely independent. In fact, I want them to be. What I don't like is the way that the British is a minority, and they are a minority. From the 2011 census, it shows that British-only national identity, there are 32.4 million of us, and that's what the census showed. It showed that there was only 9 million British, and half of them are full Comanche foreigners. When I say full Comanche foreigners, I mean complete and utter foreigners that are getting into our parliament, changing our laws, changing our constitution, and doing things they shouldn't be doing, right? And our laws and our English laws forbid that. The Act of Settlement, there is a chapter in there that we need to be, it's been repealed and it shouldn't have been. It was unlawfully repealed and we need to put it back in place. And that means the English will have their parliament back, because we will have a parliament back. And we will get rid of the British just by avoiding the Acts of Union. So getting back to the idea of so there is no such thing as British law. The simple thing to explain to people is there is Scottish law, which is a Roman law system. There is English law, common law, and there is Northern Irish law, which is bolted on. And believe it or not, people, the people of Northern Ireland still have the right to keep and bear arms and can concealed carry in Northern Ireland, right? So they still possess that right, whereas the policy of the British is to remove that right from us. Right now, the reason why we've always had guns and the militia and etc. was to protect against tyranny. That's why it was imported over to America. And again, getting back to that subject, America's codified constitution was the result of hundreds of years of extrapolating our English law. They took the best of it, put it over there, codified it, bang. America's only 244 years old. England has been a nation, one nation under God, since 927. We're one of the oldest or the oldest nation on the planet, right? And the people don't realise that the common law stops fascism, communism, and Marxism. And the reason it does is because we've got a maxim in law which is called restraint of trade. Restraint of trade stops the government, the monarch, or any authority taking control of the means of production. In other words, you earning a living. You should keep the fruits of your labour, and it comes from English law. Marxists, communists, and fascists seek to control the means of production. That is exactly what they're doing in the background. That's what you're seeing going on, and I'm not going to say the word. You're seeing going on at the moment, right? And that's what we're fighting for with one person, Stephen Todd, which we're now in the High Court, and we've got another criminal case coming up in early July. So the direct answer to people is English law and common law means this. A short law, and it can be very short, we'll say preamble, this is what the law does, this is the sections that is forbidden, but anything outside of that, prohibition, is lawful. You can do it, as long as it's not expressly forbidden. And it is completely the opposite to Roman law, completely the opposite to Scottish law, completely the opposite to European Union law, right? And that's why it's so great, because English law gives you that there has to be laws, right? But it gives you the greatest amount of freedom on the planet. And that's why we're under attack by these Marxists, communists, and fascists. And it is the English that have always stopped this tyranny. We ported it over to the United States of America. So the reason why the Americans have a codified constitution is because they basically took the best from English, put it all down, lawyers as well, by the way, wrote it all down and said, that's what we want, that's what we're signing up to. And that's exactly what happened. Why is it better not to have a fully codified constitution like the United States of America? Because there's two things about English common law and the common law constitution. And by the way, I am actually speaking the words of the late Sir John Laws and Lord Denning, for example, who agree with what I'm actually saying. And the reason why I say they agree with it, because what I'm saying to you is what I've read from their lectures, right? And the basis of it is that English common law, you can add to someone's rights, but you cannot take away any inalienable right. It's very difficult once you have a codified constitution to add rights to it and to make amendments to it, which if you speak to anyone in America, they'll tell you that. It's very difficult to amend their constitution, but you're not allowed to remove rights. You can only improve upon them. So for us, and I'll explain this to people in a couple of seconds, what would be really important is we need, and I've said this to people, I come from the digital world, if you like. I helped build the internet, and I'm talking about the infrastructure, data centers. I was a data center expert, submarine cables, fiber optics, long distance fiber optics. We had networks, and I was an engineer on that system. We had data centers in every major city in every major country around the world. And I was one of the senior engineers on that network, right? So I understand And if there's anyone technical out there, BGP, for example, Border Gateway Protocol, most people have never heard of it. And then when people say to me, can the internet go dark? And I'll say, of course it is. You just remove or black hole a whole country via the BGP routing system. It's not difficult. If you know how to do it, it's easy, right? It's easy to disconnect a whole country. Literally, apart from satellite systems. But then you take the satellite down, military have got the capability of doing that. You can completely isolate a country. So, again, getting back to this, what you need or what you can do is you don't need to touch any of our constitutional laws. They're there anyway, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just the way that the judges have been trained, British judges have been trained to ignore it. And they removed constitutional law from the bar exams in the early 1970s, and they removed it from the curriculum in the schools in the early 1970s. Just because they removed it, which, by the way, is illegal under the Acts of Union of 1706, 1707, just the fact that they've removed the communication of them rights to the English doesn't mean they don't exist. In fact, under our law, ancient laws and customs don't become void when not in use. Unlike the Roman system of law is if a law hasn't been used for 200 or 300 years, they by default say it is now a void law. We don't do that, which is why the 1297 Act, due process of law, I think it's 1384, they're all lawful. It's all lawful and you can use any of it, right? So that's the key element to it. And the English have got all these rights because we've developed them since 927 and before. Prior to becoming a single nation, we was obviously had counties and separate kingdoms, but all the kingdoms come together as one in 927. And again, there was a position in Europe where non-stop for 400 years, someone was warring with someone. And most of the people from Europe who'd had enough of that used to cross the Channel and sometimes the North Sea on rafts with their animals and with their seed and corn, etc. And the English said, go and stake your land out, but don't bring your war with you. Yeah, you can live here in peace and we'll all defend each other, but don't bring your war with you. So from that point of view, we have always accepted immigration. I don't deny that I have Germanic roots. I haven't got an issue with that. I don't deny that there are many people, including Saxons. So one of the things the English, and especially the English Democrats, stand up for are the indigenous population of England, right? There's no issue with that at all. I've got no issue with standing up for an indigenous person, which means a black, a black person, a white person, right? But I've got no issues either with standing up for someone who comes from Africa and says, I'm an Englishman. And I'd say, if you support my culture and my country and you want to stand side by side with me, I ain't got an issue with it. But do remember, there is an indigenous population here, right? And you need to respect their rights and their culture and their customs. And if you don't, expect a backlash from them because they're not, the England became England and the way we are because we accepted people coming here, but they wanted to come here because they wanted to live in peace and they wanted to live under English common law that give them the most amount of freedom.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the bit that people have got to understand. So if you look around the world, and again, so now let me go back to, and I'm not boring too many people out there with this, but what's the difference between the British and the English? Right. Let's get it bang on, right? The British supranational state is the first supranational state to exist in reality in Europe, if you like, right? So understand that the USSR was a supranational state. It consumed countries and nations. If you was a Russian and you lived in the USSR, you was no longer a Russian. You was regarded as a Soviet citizen. If you was Polish, you was no longer Polish. You was regarded as a Soviet citizen. in the European Union, which tried to impose upon us its legal system of Roman law and its supranational state upon us and our parliament, that we said we don't want none of that. And that's why we voted in a referendum to leave. The European Union, you are a citizen of Europe. To them, the European Union. The British and Yugoslavia was the same. It always ends in disaster. And people must understand that the British supranational state is the same thing. It consumed 3 nations in Great Britain. Great Britain is a landmass, an island off of Europe, where freedom has always reigned. Within that Great Britain landmass, there are 3 countries, only 3, because Ireland is not part of Great Britain. It's part of the British Isles, but it is not part of Great Britain. Scotland, England, Wales. Wales technically is a principality. I've got no issue with it becoming independent. And I respect their language and their culture. In fact, I love the Welsh, right? And I love the Scots. And we are a brotherhood of nations. I love the Irish. I ain't got any issues with that. What I've got an issue with are the socialists in the SNP, the socialists in Plaid Cymru, the socialists in Sinn Féin, and the attacks by the British and all of those people that I just mentioned on the English to divide England, because that's what they want to do. They want to regionalise England and destroy this nation forever. And the reason for that was Karl Marx said, and this is a direct quote from him, that every communist revolution has been shipwrecked on the rock of England. He didn't say Britain, he said England. And the reason for that is because we have restraint of trade as a maxim in English law that does not allow in any way or form a government, a monarchy, or anybody else, a corporation, to take control of the means of production. That is why the working class people are so important in England, and they have sought to destroy us via their Marxist methods of handouts, etc. I'm not suggesting to anyone that the English are going to say, you're in need, I ain't going to help you, right? That's not the way we work, right? But what we will do is we create our wealth, we pay into charities or local communities, and we as a community will look after our own. We do not want it centrally managed by a British supranational state. That's it.
Can I just get something in? Can I just get some? So I've always had a problem with, I understand common law and all that, but why don't people in Parliament, why don't any representative, any MPs or anything, why don't they, there is no MP who'll stick up or who will say that we have these rights. So is it just all, like you said, are they just all conspiring together just to break us up? Because as Charles Spencer says, they don't teach you. You just said they stopped teaching you about the Constitution that in 1974. So we, us the working people, have lost the translation. We don't understand what they're telling us now, because we don't learn that. You just said it. We stopped learning the Constitution, and we stopped this years ago. So we're ignorant now, but nobody sticks up for us, Graham. Nobody sticks up for us, and it winds me up.
Yeah, right. So now what you've got is a situation. So let me share this on the screen, and I want to explain to people what this means and why it's so important that you should support the English Democrats, and especially in Batley and Spen. So anyone in the north of England listening to this now, we want people to come to Batley and Spen and show the English flag and say that you want to vote for an English person who believes in the English rights and the English Constitution, right? We are being oppressed and suppressed. I'm going to share this on the screen. This is international law, right? This isn't me making it up. This is directly from, so I'm hoping that's on the screen, right? The people of England have the right to self-determination under international law. The right of self-determination, Article 1. Now, there's 2 covenants. Without going into massive detail on both of them, the international instruments, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the Economic and Social and Cultural Rights, two of them. So there are two covenants. The Universal Declaration of Rights, which was developed in 1947 by Churchill and Roosevelt, I think it was, I'm not sure, but it was called the Atlantic Treaty, right? The Universal Declaration of Rights, even though it was designed by us and written by us, was never signed up to by us. Whereas these UN covenants were signed up by the British supranational state, right? The only people they have denied a voice to are the most powerful nation within this group on this island, and that is the English. Right. And they have sought the British via the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and their socialist manifesto to destroy England. Right, that's why we ended up in the European Union completely unlawfully and against our Bill of Rights. Right, we have contained within the Bill of Rights a declaration of supremacy, and no one can rule over us, and that's what they don't want to tell you. Right, so. Again, Article 1, all peoples have the right to self-determination. Self-determination means that we have the right in England to our own parliament. We are the only country, the oldest country on Earth, technically, and yet the only nation in Europe without its own parliament. Ask yourself why. Because we are the last significant colony of the British Empire. And the British, all they've done is called division wherever they've gone in the world. Look at India. Look what they did, and they divided India, and then you've got Pakistan, and then you've got all these different countries and the aggravation that they caused. That was the British stirring the pot out there, right? If you look at Saudi Arabia, it didn't exist as a country until the British created it as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. If you look at Israel, right? Israel didn't exist until the British were bombed into submission by Israeli terrorists, which was Ergon. Yeah. And they never talk about that. They never talk about the Israeli terrorism, the Jewish terrorism, blowing up our soldiers in Palestine. And it was Palestine. It was the British that created the problem. It was the British that created the Balfour Agreement, right? It was the British who then helped to create Israel. Where's all the problems you got in the Middle East coming from? Israel. Does Israel ever supported England? The answer is no, it hasn't. Why not? Because it knows that England is the country that supports real freedom for everybody, right? Whoever you vote for, we in the British Parliament have only got British parties. So whoever you vote for, whether it's Labour, who wants to destroy England, the Tories, who are actually socialists, right, or the Liberal Democrats, all of them are British. It doesn't matter who you vote for, you still end up with a British Parliament. When you vote for the English Democrats, getting back to your question, you get an MP that will be advised and instructed on the English constitutional rights of their constituents. They won't allow any law to be passed unless they stand up and say that is repugnant law under English law because it affects my constituents' rights as an English man or an English woman. Doesn't matter what colour you are, right? That's the bit that the English are not concerned with that. The projection comes in again from the British, and people have got to understand what's going on. The British police force are British enforcers of a supranational state, in no different to the way that the Gestapo operated in France, where it offered money to the French, right? And what did it say to the French? How did they capture the resistance? Well, it wasn't through hard work and graft and detective work. It was because they created a nation of French curtain twitchers, because they offered the French 300 French francs to tell them if there was any suspicious activity from their neighbours and whether their neighbours were in the resistance. That's how they caught the resistance in France, right? Now, we're not like that. We're not a bunch of grasses, right? But they're creating that. I'm not going to say the word or whatever it is, but you can see what's happening out there at the moment, right?
Yeah.
what they're doing with their behavioural change, and that has come from a woman called Susan Mitchell, who just happens to be advising a Tory government, at the highest level, What is she? She's a member of the Communist Party of Great Britain. Why have we got someone advising a conservative, government that is a communist?
Oh.
There's so many things that don't make sense. But getting back to this that's on the screen.
It's not on the screen, actually. It's not shown on the screen. It might be on yours, but it's not shown on ours.
Oh, isn't it?
No.
Well, I'll put stop sharing then. So all people, and then it says at the bottom there, basically, there it is. Right. So basically, all peoples have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development, right? So whether you're black, brown, white, yellow, I don't give a monkeys about the colour of your skin, trust me. All I want is you to respect England and the freedoms that England gave you, including the fact that it was the English that freed the slaves, right? So, again, in no case, this is under Section 2, no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence and free, including those. So it says the state's parties present covenant, including those having responsibility for the administration of non-self-governing, which is England. We don't govern ourselves. We ain't got a parliament. And trust territory shall. So this means the British shall promote and the realisation of the right of self-determination and shall respect that right in conformity with the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations. Right. So there it is. Can you see the British respecting my right to self-determination or your right to self-determination? And the answer is no. Why? Because we are the last significant colony of the British Empire and they know they're banging trouble, right? And there is only one vote that supports your English right. Vote English, vote England. There's my website. But the English Democrats are the only people that you can vote for that respect that right, including the fact that back in our manifesto that people don't want to talk about is the fact, and it is a fact, that and Robin Tilbrook, who is the chairman of the English Democrats, is a professional lawyer for many, many years, was in the army, and completely agrees it is government policy only that stops us being armed. And if we was under proper English law now, without any changes to any laws, the chief constable in your constabulary can issue you with a firearm, right, and a shall issue permit, right? Means you could walk into a gun shop, buy a Glock, literally bang, 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 excuse the pun, and put it underneath your shirt. Let me tell you something. The law in relation to this is covered by the Bill of Rights. It says as allowed by law, but you have to go back and look at what the law said in 1688. And that discussion was about, it was a pre-existing right, I may add, right before the Bill of Rights. It was all to do with tyranny and the militia and the government trying to oppress the people, which is exactly what they're doing now. And then what you've got to look at is exactly what it said in the Bill of Rights and what was the context of why that was kept in the Bill of Rights. And the reason was they said that the law on self-defense is enough. So in other words, if you've got a firearm and you kill someone or murder someone, it's down to you. You will be in a court and face a jury. And that's the way it should be. If you use it in self-defense, in your defense, in your property's defense, your family's defense, or someone else who is being assaulted, stabbed, let's say you're on London Bridge and someone pulls out a knife and starts stabbing everyone, you pull out your firearm and shoot that person dead, that is perfectly legal, right? And you are within your rights, inalienable rights, to protect the public and your fellow countrymen.
Can I just get in? But this isn't, all this that you're saying isn't something that they just started doing. They've been doing this for years, haven't they? Like you said, they cut off us learning the Constitution in the 70s. They've probably done things before that to blind us from our rights and laws. And all I see in the common law is that they don't want us to know the proper language so we can fight our correct side.
Correct. Right. So let me just explain this to you. You've hit on a good point. So people often say to me, when did this start? And I always say to them, 1825. And the reason for that, if there's anyone listening to this, in 1820, there was something called the Quito Conspiracy, where 5 people, including a black guy, were hung, and the actual sentence was to be hung, drawn, and quartered in 1820 for subverting the English Constitution. You can go and read it. You can go and read the absolute transcripts to find out exactly what that was about. There was something like 11 charges, and all of them related to subverting the English Constitution, which was a massive treasonous thing that you must not do, right? So 5 of them got hung, and the judge rescinded on the drawing and quartering and said, just cut their heads off after you've hung them. And that's what they did, right? That was in 1820. So it's not that long ago, if you think about it, right? Why? So the attacks on us and the English started really after that, in 1825. Now, what you've got to do is go back to the War of Independence with the United States of America, and the fact that the British, not the English, because most of the people that the British were attacking were actually English migrants to America, right? And Scottish migrants to America, and Irish migrants, and Welsh migrants, and some European migrants to America, right? And then the later migrants all wanted to live under English law. So you have to remember that once they'd lost their largest productive colony, they realised how dangerous the English Bill of Rights was. They realised how dangerous the English Constitution and common law was to their agenda, which was total global domination, because they're the original globalists, basically. And that's why we got to pull the rug from underneath them. And the only way of doing that is to void the Acts of Union, because it removes their power. We remove the civil service as it is now, and we replace our country, England, back to where it was, which was a distributed. Let's see if I can find the proper words for this. Distributed governance. So each county has still now got its own chambers, and it can make its own bylaws. You should rarely go to any form of national parliament like an English parliament. And that's the way it should be. And that's the way it is in the United States of America, or it used to be until the British started overriding a lot of what they've done out there. So people should remember it started in 1776. In 1812, the British attacked America again, and a lot of people don't remember that. And there was a massive war again against the Americans, where the British tried to blockade America and the ports, etc. I think it was the Russians that stepped in and helped the Americans out, etc. And basically they lost again. After 1812, and then you got the 1820, where we had the subversion of the English Parliament and the English Constitution, and that case took place. But I'd say from 1825 onwards, when you read the laws, you can then see the British Parliament picking and undoing the English Constitution as much as it could. For example, it was in the 1800s that it repealed one element of the Act of Settlement of 1701 that was crucially important. It also allowed for some other acts of Parliament, which I won't mention on the show, that allowed a certain group of people to become MPs. They changed the oath system, which was, again, detrimental to the English. And once they changed that oath system, the first MP to be elected under that system, his name was Rothschild, right? So you'll understand why I won't mention the name of what it is, because you automatically, if there's a one group of people that you cannot criticize, 9 out of 10 times, they are the people responsible, right? And that's a serious thing. So, and again, I'm not saying all of that religion, shall we say, is bad. What I'm saying is there are a group of people that are very bad in the same way as there are a group of people within the British establishment are very bad, and they are the people that are attacking us now. They are the people that want global domination, and communism, you must remember, is in effect a global caliphate. That's what they're looking for, and the only thing that stands in their way is the English common law system, which was exported from England to America, and America is a mirror of England from the 1600s, right? And when you look at the way it is developed, it is there's a reason why it's the freest nation on earth. There's a reason why it's the most successful economy in the world. And it's not because of its landmass, because it's not the largest country in the world. It's not because of its populace, because it isn't the most populated country in the world. It's because of its English common law system that allowed people the freedom of expression. Because once you get freedom of expression, which the English Constitution allows, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of thought, what you create then is a human being allowing his mind to invent. And that's what the English have always done. When you look back, all the inventions, even the English language, the World Wide Web, the greatest university in the world, who was it invented by? An Englishman. Virtually every single major invention in the world, the railways, English. Locomotives, English. Canals, English. Bridges, large-scale bridges, English. Tower blocks, believe it or not, English.
Electronics and stuff like that.
The jet engine, Frank Whittle, English. So everything that we've given the world, and yet we are the ones who are under attack by the British. They want to rob everything and anything from us. And again, that's why it's so important. Batley and Spen, the nation's eyes are going to be on it. But you've just seen on the screen our right to determination, self-determination. Yet we're not allowed in hustings, right? So none of these British radio shows, none of these the British corporations, none of these media outlets will allow in any way a British nationalist to speak and be at a hustings. They always say you're this small group of people, we don't want you. There's 32.4 million of us. And the reason why the English Democrats still struggling after 18 years is because the British at every avenue have shut us down, because they know, they fear the English more than anyone else in the world. They fear the English, because when we take back our country and we claim our own parliament and we void the acts of union that give these people, these murderers, right? Because that's what they've done all over this globe, is murdered people, divided people, right? Because that's their game. That's what they do, right? Once we take back control and we take back our own nation and we give the power back to the people, because the people are sovereign. Once we do that, they've got nothing left. And that's why they're fighting us.
I've got a question then. So England is supposed to be a secular society where religion doesn't rule and religion doesn't say. But what it looks like, Graham, is that they are allowing religion to say things. They are allowing religion to put a divide in. They are allowing, and I always thought a secular society would be better. Secular society, and we respect our culture and our religion, but it seems that we're letting other religions divide us more within our own country, and I'm not happy with that. I don't know where your stance is and all that, but that's what's happening. They're letting these religions or religion dictate and say things that they shouldn't be saying. So how are we going to stop that kind of spread?
Well, I'm going to show you this, and again, you've hit on a really big point that I normally bring up. So I'm hoping I can find it in here, and I'll show it to people. Because what I've actually got in here, let me have a look and see if I can find the back of it. Opt out, vote for generic. Let me have a look and see if I can find it. I think it might be this one. Nope, and it ain't that one. Let me see if I can find it for you. If I can find it, let me have a look. I've got so many in here now. It's going back. Oh, yeah, no. Right, the basis of it is, and people need to understand this, the English Constitution and the Bill of Rights in particular forbids Sharia. It forbids ecclesiastical courts and commissions and that of like nature. And like nature is Sharia. Sharia is a political ideology. It is Islam is political. It is full control, both religious, state, telling you even what to wear, right? And that people again can start to see at the moment. I'm not going to say anything about that, but it's fairly obvious that you can start to see that. The Bill of Rights, the English Bill of Rights, forbids that, right? Now, you've mentioned, so I'll give you an example. Tommy Robinson, I believe that he was vilified and attacked not because of what he stood for and what he said against certain peoples or certain individuals or a certain religion or ideology. I describe it as an ideology. I believe it was because he had English in his title, the group of people that he raised. So what I'm talking about is the English Defence League. Because it had the word English in it, the British had to attack that group and take that group down, right? That is what happened. Tommy Robinson has been told many times, that the English Bill of Rights forbids Sharia, yet he has never mentioned it. For Britain, I think it is, whoever Anne-Marie Waters is with, has been told many times that the Bill of Rights forbids Sharia. She has never ever mentioned it. They are British, and that's the reason why they don't mention the Bill of Rights. They are probably, and I'm only saying probably, I don't know, Catholic, because the Bill of Rights basically tells the Pope to foxtrot Oscar, right? No one rules over us. And what the Bill of Rights did was give us certain rights over the monarchy, right? And it said that the monarch cannot be absolute. That was the purpose of it. But nobody can be absolute over us, the English. And that is what the common law system devised. So, again, you make a good point there. The next thing that some people say to me, the common law system is based on the 10 Commandments. Now, the 10 Commandments can come from Judaism, and they often is described as Judeo-Christian. Our legal system is still different to the Jewish system. Although we've got a lot of Jews that are in our legal system and are going against the English. And that's not a good thing and never has been. And I've got to be honest with you, if this was purely under the actual settlement and the Bill of Rights, they wouldn't be in them positions. And you wouldn't see the country in the state that it is now, right? And that's a fact. That's not fiction. That's not me making it up. That's that I've read those laws and I've read what those people that were then elected unlawfully repealed from the Act of Settlement, right? And there are many other laws that are hidden away from us that we've seen, and some of those have now been translated and transcribed from Latin into English, right? So there's still law, and yet they don't even know that we've got our hands on that stuff. So we're going to hit them hard when we start coming at them. The next thing that you've mentioned secularism, right? So common law is based on the 10 Commandments, right? And you can break it down, common law, in even further than that. No loss, no harm, no injury, no fraud, right? That doesn't mean if you're a criminal and you do any of them things and you go to prison for it, you are forever a sinner. Right? That is not what it means. It means you learn by your mistakes, and the English will say, listen, if you've learned by it, you've done your bird, you paid your representation, that's it. Let's move on, and let's hope you can create something in society. And that's the way our legal system always used to operate. It doesn't operate like that anymore. They don't forgive, and nor should we in that sense. The secular element of this was argued twice. Once, I believe, in the 1800s, and then once again, I think it was in the 1920s, where the secular society actually took a group of people to court, or there was a big case. And it was originally stated by the High Court in the 1800s that common law was based on the Christian faith. And then it was overturned by the secular society's application to the High Court and the High Court. Now, what had happened between that time is in 1884, and this is really important for people to understand, a group of people were created, and that group of people was called the Fabian Society. The Fabian Society are Marxists and sworn to Marxism. Their emblem is a wolf in sheep clothing, which is fairly obvious that is a Trojan, right? They will be amongst you, and they will whisper in the corridors of power, and you will never know who them traitors are. They don't stand at the gates with enemy written right across them, so you know who they are. And that is the most disastrous thing that's happened to this country, that they, following Marxist ideals from Karl Marx, have sought to destroy England. That organisation was funded by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and people don't realise that it was the Fabian Society that created the Labour Party. So by stealth, the richest people in the world took control of the means of production, exactly what the English law forbids. And the more people understand history and go through the history, they will understand that they are actually being controlled by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and that Labour Party was created by the Fabian Society, and the Fabian Society were funded by the elites to control us in one way or the other. The unions are the same, except Workers of England Union, which, by the way, are going through the roof at the moment because they're the only people standing up for people against these mandatory vaccines. So if you want a real, if you're out there and you work for the National Health Service or any other authority or company that's trying to force you into a vaccine, you do have help, and it's the Workers of England Union. Again, it is Stephen Morris, who is the General Secretary, and it is an English union. And we're the only people out there standing up for you. So, again, getting back to the secular society, that case is a case that needs challenging again, I believe, because what we have allowed is the Fabian societies and the Marxists to impose upon us other people's ideologies and religions, which was never the intention. The Bill of Rights protects Protestants, and when I say Protestants, I mean we are not ruled by a pope, we are not ruled by an imam, we are not ruled by a mufti, we are not ruled by a great ayatollah, or whatever you want to describe them as. We are individuals and have an individual relationship with God, and that is what I stand for. So people then say, now I'm getting, what's going on here? You got to remember that the Catholic religion, and again, people say, oh, so you hate Catholics. And I go, actually, no. I hate the Catholic religion the same as I hate the Islamic religion, because it's not a religion. It is a method of control. And the Catholics were the first people that created a Stasi-like reporting structure back to the Pope via confession. So when you went in that box and you confessed your sins, the priest went back to the local canon and says, here, so-and-so's doing this or doing that. Now all of a sudden they got something to blackmail you on. And then it goes back through the power range all the way up to the Pope. If it turns out that one of the people is operating in Parliament and is a Catholic, and they've confessed their sins, all of a sudden you have got this system, a Stasi-like system and security reporting structure, and it was one of the first structures ever. So remember one thing. When people say to me, so you hate Muslims, I'll say, no, I don't hate Muslims. I don't like Islam. I'll never like Islam. Do you hate Catholics? No. I was married to a Catholic for 30 years, right? So we never had issues with me being a Protestant and her being a Catholic, right? Did she know I didn't like the Catholic religion? Of course she did. Did I try and force her not to have anything to do with it, etc.? Of course I never, right? But we didn't talk about religion in that sense, yeah? Apart from the fact that if anyone mentioned the Pope, I used to refer to him as a whatever. See you next Tuesday, right? But at the end of the day, what I'm saying to you is that's what it's about. So the English are about full independence and that you are sovereign and that you have a personal relationship with God. If you don't believe in God, that's fine, yeah? But what you will believe in is our common law constitution that gives you the freedoms, the maximum of freedoms allowed by law, English common law. And that is exactly what we talk about. And I think I'm being nutted over to the other show because I'm supposed to be on 5 at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's just after 9. Graham, thank you that other people want you back on, and I'm happy for you to come back on. And I'll see you in Batley 25th, 26th, and 27th.
Yeah.
And I'm going to enjoy the Batley thing, and I'm really getting into this voting thing now. And
so am I.
And I'm loving it. I am absolutely loving it, and I know I can make a difference. I believe that if we can break these councils up from singular control, like 20-odd Labour councils, can break them up, we can make them more transparent. We can force them to do things better. You know, the checks, the seals. I'm going to be writing all this down, me. And when I become a councillor, I'm going to introduce the council. Look, you're going to fail on all these things because it can all be doctored, and I want it better. And it's up to us to push that out. And again, English Democrats, if you're going to vote for anyone, you've got to vote for the English Democrats. They're the only party that does stand for your rights as living in England. So exactly. The only party. Other than that, we're going to get wiped out. We're going to get we're going to end up a third world country. We're going to end up warring, battling everyone, and that's rising now. The crime rise and all that lot. They just don't care. They're so trying to divide us. But Graham, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
I'll speak to you before the end of the month, but definitely, people, 25th, 26th, and 27th, get up to Batley.
That's it. Be lucky. Speak to you later.
All right, thank you, pal. Cheers.
No worries. Bye.
Oh, you'll have to. I'll kick you out. Oh, he's gone. Right. Thank you, everyone. 130 odd watching. Thank you, anyone who's just new to the show and all that lot. It's been a great show. I can listen to Graham and common law all day long. I've been to common law courts. I've took notes. It's a difficult thing to get into, but all I'm saying is take it a step at a time when you're getting into common law. A lot of people, a girl who I know in Oldham, she wanted to get into common law, and this was 2 years ago. So what I said to her, I said, go and do your birth certificate first. She did that. I directed her to Angela Verdon to send her some information, which she did. Thank you, Angela. And the girl now is quite an expert on common law, and she has won a court case using common law tactics. So it does work. It does work if you know how to say your P's and Q's. Tomorrow, 6 p.m, I'm being interviewed by Carl Spears. He's an Oldham legend on his Facebook. I will put the link out a few times, not on my show. Then at 8 p.m, we're sticking with Batley and Spent. I've got Jack Thompson from the UKIP party on, and we're going to be talking about culture, our history, our statues, and the Batley teacher who is under death threats. No one's been arrested. No one's been charged. No one's been seen by counter-terrorism. Yet in 2018, when I said I wanted a kebab house burning down to the ground because that's where Charlene Downs was killed, I got a visit off counter-terrorism. So why haven't they arrested anyone for this Batley thing? I'm not going to let it go, me. If I can get to a hustings, that's what I'll be calling them out for when I'm in the hustings. Shouldn't be allowed. I wish I'd mentioned to Graham, but as far as I know, if you threaten somebody's life, if you threaten somebody, that is a chargeable offence. It's not something you get a pass to get out of jail free or no one contacts you. I've said this, all the mainstream parties are doing is appeasing minority communities in Batley, who are Batley, the area where there's been over 90 people arrested for rape charges. Batley is where Joe Cox was killed, not by any right-wing folk, and I'll prove that when I'm up there. And it's probably the most politically correct area in England, and I used to think that was Oldham, but that's Batley. So, and it's under thinking, and this religious thing I was telling you about, we've got to have a balance between religion and no religion, secularism and secular. We've got to have a decent balance between them. I'm not saying that we don't listen to religion, but at the moment, foreign religions, other than our Christian identity, are tramping over our laws in England, and that needs absolutely sorting out. When I have Graham on, we're going to be focusing on that particular issue. I didn't mention, but he's also supporting the Freedom Alliance, Graham. He spoke in London on Monday, and they want the same thing. They want a similar kind of thing. They want to stick up for English law and stuff like that. And as Graham says, if you're going to stick up, if you want to stick up for England and your English law, he'll support you all the way to the bank and back. But thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to go now, but I'm on 6 p.m. Facebook, Carl U. Spears. Just check my Facebook and I will put the links out. And 8 p.m., I've got Jack Thompson on from UKIP. I was a big fan of UKIP in the past. Although I'm not so much a fan now, I'm a fan of anybody who's stepping up. And Jack, the same as young Jordan Gaskill, is stepping up, man. He's stepping up. He's learning his ropes. He might end up being in another party, but he's learning his ropes. And there's nothing wrong with getting under UKIP's banner if you want to learn the ropes about political things, voting, running as a candidate and stuff like that. And they do have a lot of working class people in them. But again, if you're going to vote for anyone, English Democrats is the one to vote for at the moment. There is no other registered party that's going to do as good. For Britain, I'm not really a fan of now because of other people. But again, English Democrats. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Good evening, Peter Smith. Everyone in the, it is Viking dude. It is. I understand UKIP are dead in the water, but if you wanna run, learn the local councilling thing, there's nothing wrong with going under their banner. Daniel Simpson went under their banner in the last election, 2016 or 17, and he come second, and he's learning. But thank you. I'm going, everyone. Thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. on my YouTube, Facebook, and all that. 6 p.m. Carl U. Spears, a legend from Oldham, is going to interview me, and it's an explosive, no holds barred interview. And I'm going to be saying stuff that's going to make people's stick up on end on the back of the neck. I'm going to say things that councillors are going to go, he can't say that. Well, I can, because I'm not politically correct, so I'm going to say it. Thank you very much, everyone. Tune in to In the Box tomorrow night, 8 p.m. And I'll be live on Facebook, Carl U. Spears. I'll put his link up and I'll make sure it's shared out when I'm on Facebook and he's interviewing me. But thank you. Good night. God bless. Thank you.